This paper looks at the case for Pascal's wager. In fact, there's two papers associated with this. The first one is my MA dissertation on Pascal's wager. And the second paper is taking that wager. I consider what happens if we take into account modern miracles. Now, Pascal's wager is essentially the idea that if you're going to be a betting man, it would make sense to bet for God, because, as it were, the fruits of a successful bet for God is eternal life. The consequences of a mistaken bet against God is eternal damnation. But often the wager is couched in language whereby the knowledge of whether God exists or not is effectively unknowable. So therefore we are, in a sense, risking things on the basis of incomplete or little or no knowledge as to whether we're making the correct bet or not. Only at the point of death would we find out that our bet was a successful bet or not. However, if you take into account modern miracles, what you have is a situation whereby the odds in favour of God's existence massively increase. In fact, I rephrase it as Pascal's certainty. And then once you have a situation where it is almost certain that God exists, and the God that exists is the God of Christianity, because the miracles take place in the context of Christianity, that means that we turn Pascal's wager to Pascal's certainty, and now we have the elements for a risk assessment. Because once you have a certainty that God exists, the question you have to ask is this: how likely it is that the students at a university or the pupils in a school do not have a saving faith in God? And if you phrase it as a question like that for a risk assessment, you'll see that the likelihood is high, because many of our students and our pupils do not have a saving faith in God. And the consequences, the outcome of not having a saving faith in God, is the loss of eternal life and the prospect of eternal judgment. Such a situation is catastrophic. So you have a high likelihood and an extreme cost. It would seem to me, in that risk assessment, you would do all you could to alert the young people to their threat or their risk, as it were, of eternal judgment. And that's the motivation for evangelism, is to let people know there's a very serious consequences to rejecting the gospel. And so I bring together Pascal's wager with modern miracles to create, you might say, the ultimate risk assessment, the risk assessment around eternity. And I think there's a lot of merit in that. You may disagree, but that's the point of these articles, is to stimulate thought and discussion. Thank you for listening.